All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. We are very excited that you joined us. If you haven't tuned in, this is the show where we talk to celebrities, thought, and industry leaders to really discover their journey to success. I am super excited that you're joining us. This show is like no other. I can promise you that. You might laugh, you might cry, but you will definitely leave inspired and gain a whole new level of insight into those people that you follow, love, and admire.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. And really, this conversation today is going to be interesting. I think a lot of organizations out there, and I think individuals too, right? Like, we're people that are trying to figure out kind of the evolving workplace and what this means, and remote and freedom and hybrid. And we're all still so early in this game. I was talking to a friend of mine about another CEO, and I'm like, there's no playbook. Like, there's nobody I can call or mentor. I'm like, hey, how do you build a like remote only XYZ? Because there's like 5 companies that have done that. And then on top of not just the remote piece, you've got changes in the way that people want to work and where they want to work, and benefits and hours that they want to work. And so it's not just the remote and the hybrid conversation. There's a lot more to the future of work. And I'm really excited to be joined today by Mr. Tim Gray. Tim is a journalist in communications. He actually was a police reporter in New York City for the Staten Island Advance, which we've got to talk a little bit about that too, just because that sounds like some interesting stories there. But now he's leading kind of the charge with Agora on really this like idea of the changing workplace. And so today's episode, we're going to be focused on the changing workplace, what they're seeing in terms of as they work with many companies on in a ton of different ways to help them enable them globally in a lot of different environments. And so everyone, please join me in welcoming Mr. Tim Gray. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jake. Happy to be here. If you were from Staten Island, you would pronounce that newspaper the Staten Island Advance.
Advance.
The emphasis on the
Staten Island Advance.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. Yeah, Matt.
It's a great borough, though. I'm not disparaging Staten Island.
No, of course not. No. So what was, again, like, you've done a lot of work. You've been published on a lot of places: Economist, New York Times, New York Magazine, MSNBC, CBS Interactive, Gannett, CNN, not just the Staten Island Advance too. So you've done, you've been very, very active. And so how did you get to this? How did you kind of land in this world of, kind of the changing and evolving workplace? Like, what was it for you that you kind of started gravitating or starting to do more in that world?
Yeah, that's an interesting path, I think. I started out as a newspaper reporter, and that's when you used to really have to go into the newspaper, and then they would say, all right, get out and go find something to report on, right? And it wasn't just all online. So being a police reporter, I love to write, but I also always and loved, obviously, true crime stuff is fascinating. But always had a love for tech. So I kind of combined those at a certain point when I became an editor at a early tech magazine called internet.com and internetnews.com. And then really my
how much
passion
is
for
that
tech.
domain worth?
Yeah,
I
don't
gotta
know.
imagine internet.com.
I know, right?
Like, God, man, how early would that be? Like, that person was like, man, they used that CD from AOL. They popped that bad boy in, and they
Absolutely. Well, the founder of the company was ahead of his time. He was doing some really interesting things, and that company eventually became Jupiter Media and spun off, and many companies from those early days did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I really started taking deep dive into technology, talking to tech experts and learning about a lot of new communications tools and what was happening in the space. And that led me to want to join one of those organizations and participate in creating these future tools. And if not technically creating them, but evolving the messaging and how to share that and communicate with a larger audience the benefits of these technologies. So that's the short end of the story of how I ended up with Agora, where I think Agora is doing amazing things, and I'm really excited to talk with you about some of those.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think again, for I think this is a topic where whether you're on the leadership side of this or whether you're on the employee side or partner side or anyone who supports anybody who's kind of full time as well too. I just feel like it just really is just like a very um different time, right? At the end of the day, like I think that's maybe the right word, is different, because there's so many things that have kind of all collided at the same time. We've been moving toward this kind of gig economy world for a little bit. COVID accelerated all that. We'd been moving toward more flexible. Boom, COVID accelerated that. We've been moving, I come from the sales and marketing side, to more and more sales being done digitally. Boom, COVID accelerated that. So what I feel like, it's a challenge, right? Because as a leader and someone who grew up in an office first environment, you kind of learn a way to build culture. You learn a way to interact with employees. You learn all these habits, and it worked. And now in the last 2 years, our worlds have been, how we build and scale and build culture. All of this has changed. And then on the flip side, as an employee, again, it's like you knew how to go in and talk and catch up with someone randomly, at the water cooler, or some version of that. And so, what I've seen is just like we're struggling with this. Like, we have so many different tools that we're using, and I know we're going to talk about tools as well. But then we have more meetings than we've probably ever had before as well too. So in terms of kind of how you think about the changing workplace and some of the things that y'all are doing at Agora, like what are some of the core tenets, of like this idea of like future of work, and how people are thinking about the evolution of tools and other things to give people not just flexibility, but just different ways to really create a great company in this kind of changing workplace.
Yeah. So, remote work is not for everyone. And even though a lot of people love it and they think it's the greatest thing ever, that you get to work in your pajamas and you don't have to do that 2 hour commute, some people feel really isolated and disconnected. And that can be a real drawback for performance, obviously. So, one of the main tenets at Agora is we're helping deliver this like live interactive voice and video that provide meaningful human to human connections, right? And so
Yeah,
to us, that is a really important goal. How do you provide meaningful human to human connections in real time that can emulate those real life experiences? And a lot of the companies that we work with, a lot of our customers, um, attempt to do just that with our technology, to make it more lifelike, essentially, and put you in those situations where you have that day-to-day interaction with your colleagues that might seem like the kind of water cooler moments, and maybe break room experiences where you can kind of just huddle on the side with your colleagues. So creating that environment is really key to for productivity,
sure.
and that's documented.
How do you again, like, so you think about some of these things, like how how do you think about simulating those things in a non-forced way, right? So you're talking about like just some of the things that Agora does specifically, but kind of zooming out, like how are you guys thinking about how to create those moments in like a meaningful way? Because I feel like even as again as a CEO, I can I think about like we did like a trivia happy hour yesterday, and we do a lot more than just happy hours, but I feel like you're looking for these things that don't feel mandatory.
Mhm,
It's like
yeah,
we joke and we call it mandatory fun. Like, guys, like we're not at Scaled, we're not doing mandatory fun videos, okay? Like like
yeah.
like or video like interactions here. So how do you guys think about tackling that part of it, to where like it feels like it's the random connection or bump in versus the scheduled whatever it is?
Yeah, so that's interesting as well. Just yesterday we had a birthday party slash work anniversary celebration for the company, and everyone got together on our platform. We have an internal platform that we don't use. we don't provide for customers. It's just for Agora employees. So we do some things like that. And again, like you said, the happy hour, obviously that is, that's important for morale. We did a kind of not too long ago, we did a escape room for the whole company, which was really interesting to do. But that's like, those are not forced events. I don't want to say it like that, but those
Yeah.
are the art kind of artificially created events. So as kind of a white label provider and providing the platform for companies to do this, we see so many different companies, our customers, doing really interesting things, and really, like you said, you can bump into people on some of these apps, right? And okay, you just made that connection, or you can lean over and tap someone on the shoulder, right? Like the way you used to, but now you're virtually tapping them. And then if you include the metaverse into this, if you start working with metaverse platforms,
Yeah.
then it takes it to a whole new level. But right now that metaverse kind of looks hokey, but this is like the beginning of the internet. What we're seeing is with the metaverse, and someday soon it's going to be pretty real, and you're going
It's
to
gonna
be
be
living a lot
super
of your
real.
life in it.
Man, I'm 100% with you. So we experimented with Gather, which is, I think, probably like the leader in the space for companies. And,
Mm,
we created this kind of gathering. So for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of platforms that, are kind of in this space. But, I think what the key is, again, there's no playbook for it, right? There's no playbook for how to create a metaverse office engagement, And so
yep.
I think we did a bad job of just like, really, getting all groups in there consistently. And because you can do that kind of bump in your shoulder, or tap someone, or kind of like walk up to someone virtually. And I told my team, this is, I mean, when did we pilot that? It's been a while now. So maybe it's 9 months ago. I said, guys, if you don't think that in the future you're going to be sitting here like we are, Tim, and that your virtual work will be you put on your Oculus, you're crazy. Of course,
Yep.
that's where we're going to go with this. Of course, that's where we're headed. Like, how much better would it be if you put on, the Oculus, and then I look over and I can see, Susan next to me. I can see John next to me, and we can kind of see each other's, motion. So I'm really fascinated by this. I'd be curious how you guys are thinking about like that, or the metaverse, and some of those things as well.
Yeah. So two points on that. Sorry, I have a pup here. Hey,
No worries, man.
uh, this is how we work these days.
That's right.
Two
That's it.
points here, right? It's like, so everyone, and we talked about this a little bit already, you and I before. Everyone, many people love the freedom of remote work, right? It allows you to kind of be more flexible. You don't have to sit in traffic for 2 hours a day. You can run out and do some errands and then come back. But and that's the real freedom that everyone loves. But and people don't like when I say this, but I suggest that the office is actually coming back for you, because as technologies grow and increase, sure, you're not going to go into work, but you'll be in work in these virtual realities, and you'll be sitting next to your boss, or you'll be sitting next to a colleague, and you will just look up and say, hey, do you have a second to chat? And then you'll walk
Yeah,
over virtually to the break room with them and sit down at a table. I mean, it's going to come to that. And which is fantastic. It's an option. It doesn't always have to be that. I
sure.
know, you can do that hybrid option, which I personally would prefer. Like I would like to be in the office, 3 days a week or 2 days a week, and then have that flexibility. But like I said, the office is coming back for you. So everyone be aware of that. The
Yeah,
second point that you just brought up was really great, and talking about the Oculus, right? So we work with HTC Vive with their Sync app, and we actually just received. Um, we were a finalist for Fast Company's World Changing Ideas
yeah. I
with
saw
our
that.
work with HTC Vive. So what?
Yeah, talk about that, man. Because I think that's the interesting stuff here. Is like, I think that there are these like cool things that you guys are doing in particular, and obviously your platform helps enable some of that too. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
yeah. So really, so our platform. is helping with HTC Vive, bridging the gap between the virtual and physical worlds by delivering the connectivity that only we can deliver on our edge network from, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many using smartphones and desktops. So the interesting thing here is that we with our network allows people who aren't in that virtual world, aren't wearing the Oculus, to participate and see into that virtual world with a web browser. So they can also participate. This is going to cut down on costs. When people who can't access that technology won't need it, right? They'll just look at their browser or their phone browser. And it goes beyond work as well, right? Like if you think about the health and wellness applications and education, if you're someone living in a remote area, of the world, like just say somewhere in India or somewhere, in a developing country where maybe you're operating on 2G, our network will allow you to be able to deliver the metaverse and participate in it even without those expensive tools. So I think that's really cool. This virtual world is really extending uh, beyond just simple remote, quote unquote remote work,
Yeah,
which is fascinating. I think
it
like a
really
great
is.
example, last month or 2 months ago, NASA sent a hologram doctor to visit the astronauts, right? So I mean, if that's some real time engagement, as we like to call it at Agora, for sure, right? And that's important, to have that connectivity and that connection, and that's what we mean by human to human connection. So it's really amazing the things our customers are doing and the things that a lot of people are doing around the
Sure.
world.
Well, and I feel like for a lot of people listening, it's like, wait, what? Like, it's like, I feel like, a lot of these things, like, you have to just embrace it too. Like this is, it's very obvious. This is, kind of where we're headed. And I think for a lot of people on the, as employees, et cetera, it's like, well, what? And I think as leaders who are like, well, yeah, but it's like, this is just happening, and I think
Oh
like
yeah.
just you got to be, and that's why we experimented with some of these, and we didn't necessarily do it fantastic, and I think we've got some ways that we're going to kind of redeploy here later, but you have to be thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
You have to be thinking about. Let's talk about like some of the things you talked about. Again, like the 2G example. Um, how do you think about all the tools that we have today? Like right now, it feels like all the different tools and Slack and email and then Metaverse and like how are you seeing organizations you know create more of a cohesive experience for people?
Yeah. So, like everyone else, there's too many tools. And it's a very common complaint, right? Like, because I'm getting slacked and I'm getting, someone might be getting a Zoom, and too many Zoom calls and too many Slack calls, or just side messages and emails, and so you are seeing a consolidation of these platforms, and you're also seeing the popular platforms like Slack adding new capabilities, right? Like, so I
Oh
know
yeah.
Slack is adding video chat now. They have that
Yeah,
huddle
they've had video chat. I did
experience.
it last night.
Yeah. So, as those will continue to grow, there'll be players who are the winners and people who fall by the wayside. And, I think Slack is going to be a winner here. Obviously because they're way ingrained in the market now, and they're developing their product even further. So yeah, I think consolidation is really important, and as the technologies continue to advance, you're going to just continue to see more interesting applications that'll help build that real life human to human connection. Like I,
Totally.
I think like one is like spatial audio, right? Like, so if you're talking about the being in a metaverse, you're hearing people forget about this, but it's such a sense that's so important to have a real life experience, right? Like, so traditional audio, like we're kind of having now, is like a walkie talkie. One person talks at a time. You can't really talk together. But with spatial audio, you're recreating the way, voices are heard in real life,
That's
like
right.
from all different areas. So like when we go back to that virtual office, that metaverse office that we just talked about, that's how you're going to hear people at the same time. Maybe you're hearing crosstalk between a
Yeah.
colleague, and you could still at the same time hear someone behind you. That's creating a real life environment, and that's what's important for people psychologically to feel connected.
Yeah.
So the 3D spatial audio is really key, and in the future, and that's something we're working on as well. And Agora is launching a 3D solutions for 3D spatial audio.
Whoa.
But that is a real priority.
I love that. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's just like, dang, like,
Yep.
all right, like what, like that's. I
It,
mean, I think for a lot of people out there, it's like, we're just used to sitting here, we're on Zoom, and
yeah.
I think again, it's like that. There's that again for a lot of you out there. It might be like, holy crap! Like, especially if you're a leader and you're listening to this, you might be like, yeah, we're not doing any of that. Like, we
Yeah.
just we're just like used to throwing. I feel like what happened is we started to build this like I'm gonna throw a meeting on someone's calendar world.
Hmm.
And I've put an end to it with our leadership team. I'm like, guys, if it can be done, and I really feel like asynchronous communication too is on the rise and a really great tool. We do tons of asynchronous video. Of like
Yep.
instead of having to have a meeting, it's and creating a little bit of that human to human connection. Like, hey, instead of just sending over a document, we do it all the time. Everyone in the company does it where you just record a 5 or 6 minute video. Hey, what's up? Let me talk you through this. Here's what it is. And then you'll see people send a video back with like questions too.
Hmm.
And I think that it's kind of I feel like asynchronous is something that's also a really important part of this future work. And I don't know how you guys think about that, but it's been big for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about other platforms too, right? You brought up Zoom. Like they're adding onto their platform too,
Yeah.
so that's part of that consolidation. And they're providing those tools, even though we're somewhat competitor. We kind of play in the same arena in certain spaces. We really do different things. But yeah, I mean that's really important. I think it's interesting to note also, like our founder, Tony Zhao, uh, was a co-founder of WebX, a co-founding engineer of WebX, along with the founder of. So was the Zoom founder. So you can see how these kind of things,
They're all
their
intertwined.
their skills and experiences advance, right? And they're both obviously both have companies doing amazing things. So it's pretty cool to see what everyone's working on.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So look, and again, as we kind of like start to kind of wrap up here in the next like few minutes, um, I think we've covered a lot of really good ground here, and I think there's a lot of things that I think we're talking about that a lot of whether you're on the employee side, whether you're on the leadership side. Let's talk about you touched on a little bit like the future of remote. And some of the other things that people are looking for. We talk about like healthcare, education, et cetera. So, like, not just future of remote, I guess we can kind of make it a little more broad. Like, what are some of the things that you're seeing outside of these? We're talking about kind of we'll call it like the communications and how we interact, but there's other things happening too in this kind of changing workplace. So how do you see some of those things playing out and fleshing out?
Well, just and as I've said this several times, and as the technology continues to advance, we're all going to be living in this much of our life in the virtual world, right? And now there's even talk of it becoming so ubiquitous, like virtual. What's a virtual crime, right? Like what can
Yeah,
happen in this, or or if you're at the workplace, what are the in if you're at the workplace in a virtual world, what are the office norms? Are they any different than the real life in-person norms and tendencies that you have to adhere to? I think there's just so much. So it's such almost a wild west of development right now, and as we say, it's so early days. The future is, in terms of use cases, it's almost unlimited. What we at Agora do is we drive the ability for anyone to and create any type of use case for anything they want to do. We're the backbone, we're the platform for that. And so, like, every day we wake up and we see new customers doing really amazing things in the
yeah, I
future
bet.
of work and in education and healthcare. I think someone I think it was our CEO and founder once said, he's amazed when he wakes up every day and sees what people are doing with the technology that he created. And we're just going to keep seeing so many interesting things develop in the future of work. And those applications are really can be used across these verticals, right? So like future
Totally.
of work, your same thing can be done for education, and healthcare and gaming and social. There's just so
Totally.
many opportunities.
I agree 100%. So I hope everyone, again, I hope everyone got a few ideas today. I think there's definitely some sparks in here and some things for me where I'm like, as CEO of a almost 50-person company, I'm like, oh crap, like yeah, we gotta go back to some of this stuff and start to think about that,
Right.
because I think it's obviously it's very very helpful. And I appreciate it. I think Tim again is somebody who works at an organization that you know lives and breathes this stuff. You get a chance to see all different flavors of this, and you guys are obviously um, you know drinking your own champagne as well, and doing a lot of these. And so I think for a lot of people who are listening, my advice is, obviously go check out what Agora is doing, and we'll put links in the show notes. But also just start to think about like what's one thing you could do to help to again improve or adapt or research this kind of changing workplace, because as Tim said, like it's coming. There's no doubt, like all these things are happening, right? So I think everyone out there needs to just make sure that you're staying ahead of the game. And so Tim, really appreciate you and your insights. I know you're out on vacation right now as well, so I appreciate you carving out the time and the conversation.
Anytime. Thanks, Jake. I had a great time. I'd love to talk to you again.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another extremely fun and interesting episode. I thought it was fun and interesting, so I hope you did too, of the Jake Dunlap Show. Really great, just breaking down everything that makes people who they are, the success, the trials and errors, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, and make sure, more than anything, to go over to jakedunlap.com. That's where you're going to stay up to date on all the latest guests, additional details, prep notes. We're going to be sharing everything on jakedunlap.com. So go ahead, go over there. You can subscribe there as well too, and we will see you next week on the Jake Dunlap Show.